I didn't grow up in church. I'd been to church a couple times. I kind of knew who God was and what the religion was about, but I really just didn't subscribe, didn't pay any attention. Kind of just went through life doing whatever I felt like, didn't really have a care or purpose or direction or anything like that. And I really just didn't care about anything. My name is Scott Waldron, and this is my J10Life. In high school, I started dating a girl my junior year. She grew up in church. She still went to church with her family every Sunday, went to youth group, did all kinds of stuff. And she got me to go to youth group a couple times. And when I went, I wasn't really accepted. And I kind of felt like the stereotype I had of Christians in churches was it's kind of like a club and people don't really take you in. Actually, that became a reality, and it just turned the switch off even more. It wasn't until we were getting married until I really started thinking about it again, and a marriage counselor had told us that we've got to go to church because it's one of the most important things in a marriage is to be together in your search for Christ. And we'd gone to New Life once before, back when it was at the movie theater, just because we thought it was a cool thing to do, see what it was all about. And we're like, wow, this is really cool. It's not really church, because the only experience we had was for other church, which was totally different. But when we wanted to find somewhere that maybe would be more our style, we went and sought out New Life, which had moved to Waldron High School. And the first Sunday we went, I believe it was an Easter Sunday or maybe the Sunday after Easter, and they were doing a series on doubts. And I was like, huh, this is weird. They're talking about life. And I mean, the first thing I noticed was I walked in the door and somebody said, "Hi, what's your name?" I was like, well, somebody asked my name. These are like normal people. They're dressed like normal people. And that really changed everything for me, because I was like, so this church isn't a club. Maybe that's not how church is supposed to be. Still pretty torn at what was right and what wasn't. But I liked what I saw, and I kept coming. The sermon series we were doing on doubts was something I was really struggling with at the time. It wasn't that I didn't believe in God, it was that I didn't have a reason to believe in God. And I, doubted the existence and whether or not it was true. And then driving, I was going to the gym every night and leaving at about 11 o'clock at night, just driving home, and I was thinking to myself, why should I doubt Christ? If I'm wrong and he's real, what happens if I die, It was like 11 o'clock at night, and I drove over to one of my wife's friends' houses. I knew the guy was a pretty strong believer. He'd shared some of his faith with me in the past when I worked with him. And I asked him, I said, what does it mean to give your life to Christ? And I think that's something I want to do. Can we talk about it? And that night, after talking to him for about 10 minutes, I sat down and prayed with him and gave my life to Christ. I still didn't really know what it meant, but I felt better about doing it, and I had made the decision that I want to learn more about Christ and what it's all about. We'd started going to church every week, going to church events and stuff like that, and realized that this is more of like a family than a club. And the next step for us was to go into a life group. And we went to a life group at the Adams house, and we went there, and I think there was about 4 or 5 couples. We really started studying some stuff, but more so just connecting with people on a much deeper level. It wasn't that I really started learning about the Bible or even really reading the Bible for that much, other than verses here or there, till we started discipleship groups, and I was in a discipleship group with Mark Adams and two other young gentlemen about my age. And we studied the book of James. And that was the first time I'd ever actually sat down over the course of 2 or 3 months and actually read a book out of the Bible and actually studied it and learned what it meant. And that really changed my view on what faith is and what it does. It was, and I can actually think of, the one study that we did was in chapter 2 when Paul talks about faith without action is dead. And I kind of thought, well, just because I believe in God, that's good enough, right? And that verse said, no, it's not good enough. And then the following sentence or verse says that even the demons believed in God. And I was like, so that was kind of like me before I knew Christ. I was just as bad as a demon. Just because I know about Christ doesn't mean it's a good thing or a bad thing. But even if I believe in him and I don't do anything about it, then it still doesn't change anything. And that's really when I decided to start serving, and my wife and I got active in helping out with the youth group, and that led into serving elsewhere. And then ultimately, I think the biggest thing I've done is this past spring, J10 sent me and 5 other people to Haiti to help with relief. And that was a huge step in my life, because that was the first time I'd ever given up a part of my life to help somebody else and not worry about the consequences. It wasn't a vacation in any way, and I really saw myself being called out by God on that trip, as I was needed for a specific purpose, and I wasn't just there hanging out with everybody else. My life is not the same anymore. I'm not wandering around with no purpose or direction anymore. And I have a lot of people to thank to get me there. My wife Cindy, who's not only showed me direction, but she's also been very patient and dealing with me as I grow and learn and evolve. And as well as Mark Adams, who's invested a lot of time in me. And without him, I can honestly say I wouldn't be where I am today. And J10 Church, they've also been there. People have come and go, and one thing that's never changed is the community and the love that community has for people.